can be.
Good
Ready?
night, Mark.
The
Okay,
meeting
Colleen.
tonight is for the conduct of town business by the town board. The public's invited to participate at the items marked on the agenda, public comment. During that segment of the meeting, if you have a question or comment for the supervisor, please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. Please state your full name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Thank you, everybody. I'd like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all our brave men and women fighting all over the world for democracy and freedom, and also for our first responders. Thank you very much. Hey, Chief.
Jerry, I thought you were on
Sit on your
vacation
side,
still.
Jer.
He's back. So I'd like to amend the agenda to add in a discussion on the Christmas, on the December 23rd meeting, whether we like to have it or not. So I'd like to have that amendment to the agenda. If somebody could,
Motion. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And with the amendment to the agenda, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Motion to approve minutes from the November 12th, 2019 Town Board meeting.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Hey, Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Authorizing payment of the bills, $191,724.57.
I'll make that motion. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll pay the bills. Tonight we have a presentation. First of all, as you know, we have on the agenda a resolution to accept the bid for the South Pier. And Brendy Nelson is from Titanbaum, South Pier. If there's any questions, I think now is the time. Could you please come up? Just state your name. Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty loud unless you...
No, you got to go over there because we're recording it and yeah, no
Same
way.
thing.
Good, good.
Thank you. Good evening. For your record, I'm Brandy Nelson, licensed professional engineer with Ty and Bond. We've had the pleasure of working with the town on the South Pier restoration plans. The plans went out to bid in October, and on October 22nd, we opened bids. 3 bids were received, one from the Arben Group, one from D.A. Collins, one from C.D. Perry. Did everyone receive my bid evaluation letter of November 12th? Okay. After review of the bids, did you want me to read all 3 bids?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. So the Arben Group's bid was $1,479,648. D.A. Collins' bid, and this is for the base bid, was $2,386,278. And C.D. Perry's was $2,527,819.58. So Arben Group was just about $900,000 lower than the other bids. We typically look very carefully at a bid when it has a significant gap between the other 2. In this case, Arben Group contacted us and asked for what is permitted in the contract documents, 3 days to evaluate their bid and make sure they don't want to withdraw it. They took that time, evaluated their bid, came back to us and said, no, they're comfortable with their bid. They don't believe they've missed anything. So after that, we went ahead and got their references for work that they've done elsewhere here in the Hudson Valley. We followed up with all their references. They came back with, I would say, generally very good references. And based on the bid and as well as the positive references that were received, we would recommend award to Arben Group. And I can run through just briefly what we're recommending as far as award. So the Arben Group, as I said before, had a base bid of just about 1.48 million. We also had several alternates, just to price out alternate approaches to the project. Those alternates were to change one of the gangways from the mainland out to the pier from a single 4-foot wide gangway to either 2 4-foot wide gangways, or to swap out the 4-foot wide gangway for a single 8-foot wide gangway. So alternate number 1 was to add one additional 4-foot wide gangway at a price of $66,000. Alternate 2 is to deduct, to take away the base bid's 4-foot wide gangway, and then alternate 3 would be to add in the 8-foot wide gangway. And then alternate number 4 is unit prices for additional piles. We had done an underwater inspection on piles in 2016, and since that time, there may be some below mud damage, or there may be a field condition that's encountered as the work proceeds. So we wanted to try and lock the contractor into a per pile price if additional piles are needed in the future. So based on all of that, our recommendation is for an award of the base bid, along with alternate number 2, which would be to remove the existing 4-foot wide gangway. That's a deduct alternate of $33,000. Then with the addition of alternate number 3, that's an add alternate to add the 8-foot wide gangway in the amount of $90,000. And then also alternate number 4, which is an add alternate, which would provide for a contingency amount if additional piles are determined to be broken beyond what was identified in the contract documents. That would result in a total contract price of $1,578,648 in total.
On alternate 2 and 3, the deduction of $33,000 is to remove the 4-foot
Correct.
and add an 8-foot?
And then alternate 3 is to add the 8-foot.
So I don't know why, I'm just asking like maybe a dumb question, but why isn't it 66,000? Like why is it more than double what a 4-foot would? Why wouldn't we just put 2 4-footers?
Right, it's a good question. It came up during bidding. One of the gangway manufacturers contacted us and said, did you ever think of having an 8-foot wide gangway? You save the cost of all the aluminum that makes up the 2 railings because you just have outer railings. And so that's the difference in the cost savings.
You would save, so why wouldn't it be less? That's what you were saying you're saving?
Right.
You would save the 2 center pieces. I'm just wondering why it's so much more an 8-footer than a 4-footer. I mean, you might not have that answer, but
why the
it's
8-footer
like
is so
I'm thinking,
much
in
more
my
than
head,
a
I'm just thinking of
4-footer?
an 8-footer would be double what a 4-footer would be.
Why isn't it 66?
Why is it not 66,000?
Right.
If you saved all those center beams.
Right, so the 90-foot, so it is, if you were gonna add one additional 4-foot wide, it would be an additional upcharge of $66,000. If you're going to add the 8-foot, it's an upcharge of $90,000 and you deduct 33. So it is, what is that? That is $57,000, so it is cheaper.
Yeah, I think you misquoted yourself in the beginning.
Did I say it was?
You said it was 90,000, I think.
Alternate 3 is 90,000, but the net difference is the 57,000.
I think what Scott is saying is if you're deducting 33,000 because you're taking out the 1 4x8,
Okay.
why is it if you, the 2 of those would be 66,000, why is it 90,000? Why isn't Why isn't it closer to 66,000 than 90,000?
Well, two would be, if you were adding one more, well, let's see, so we don't really have that price. The alternate number one gives you the price for an additional 4-foot wide
That's
gangway.
66,000.
66,000. And so you could assume that two would be 130.
That's another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
That's true, that's true, okay,
Yeah,
okay. So the first option was, the base includes a 4x80-foot gangplank.
correct.
Option one was to add a second 4x8. That was
Correct.
$66,000 added onto the base. Nobody wanted to do that. Didn't seem like anybody wanted to do that. You're not recommending that.
Correct.
So you take out one 4x8, that deducts it by $33,000.
Right.
Why isn't it a deduction of $66,000? Maybe is
Yeah,
what Scott's question
That would
is.
be my next question. If it cost you 66,000 to add one, why wouldn't the deduction be
66,000?
66,000?
Yeah, well, the contractors I'm sure are playing a little bit of a game with the numbers,
Yeah.
but
They want to do them.
I mean, I'm just nitpicking at numbers, but I'm trying to understand why that would be that way. And any dollar amount saved would be a dollar amount saved, but it just doesn't seem to add up. That's all I'm getting at. But
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, our reason for the recommendation, I mean, you could certainly go with just a single 4-foot wide gangway. For now, you could add a second one at a future time.
No, I mean, I like my opinion is I like the 8-foot thing. I like that better, but the numbers to me just didn't kind of, that's all.
Yeah,
And then on number 4, that 42,000 is locked in no matter what, even if they don't do it?
it's a contingency, so it would only be awarded under a change order due to field evidence that, so when we go, if the board decides to make a motion tonight to award the project, we would issue, our next step would be a notice of award, and we would indicate what is awarded. But then, once a contract is signed, which would be the next step, we would issue a notice to proceed, and we would not issue a notice to proceed on alternate 4. Alternate 4 would be subject to change orders based on field conditions, but there'd be a contingency that's already been approved.
Right, those are only for work order changes based off the original contract.
Correct.
Okay.
And we would find that out pretty soon because they would pull one pier, one piling?
They may pull several, yeah. We've asked as a first order of business that they drill 3 test piles and then also check very carefully each individual pile. So when they start to do demolition, they may find that some of the piles have some rot in them, and it may be, it may not be suitable to repair it, it may be better just to replace it. So some of those field things we're just not.
So I just want the board to feel comfortable, that's the unknown. We really don't know.
Correct.
But and then also, it might be that the pilings are shorter as you come to the west, right? I mean, as you come to the
Correct.
shore. So,
If you come towards the landward side.
Right.
Yeah.
right, okay.
And do we know if they're gonna be doing vibrating or pounding yet? Do we know that yet?
So in general, we're expecting that it's going to be vibratory, and then there's a final tap to set them in place. That's typically what will be done.
And does that change the cost at all, or that's what's built into this cost?
That's built in.
So the vibration thing is time sensitive, and we have to wait for that, right?
Actually, it's the driving part.
Is it- I
that's-
always get that
I
You always-
know.
you always flip it.
Yeah, it's the driving part, not the vibration.
Correct.
You would think with the vibration, it would disturb
More, but it doesn't.
I think the
Yeah,
shock,
and there's
the sound waves
interesting
travel further.
data on, most of what you're setting is timber piles as opposed to steel piles. And the timber piles absorb a lot of that vibration just
Okay.
because of the nature of the material, whereas the metal piles echo a little more in the water. So, there's some folks that say that timber piles shouldn't be subject to that, but it's in our permit, so we do need to respect the permit.
So, hoping the board would pass this resolution, what do you see the process and how long before actually we see engineers there and Arden there? I mean, is there?
I haven't talked to them about specifically mobilizing, but we did tell them that we would like to see them get started as soon as possible. There is work they can do outside of the restrictions on setting piles. Piles right now are 12 to 16-week lead time, so I don't see any pile driving this year, but we'd expect there to be pile driving next year. If they do their test piles, they'll be able to place their order specifically for what they need, get that shipped here, and then begin the work in earnest. But we'd expect to see them evaluating the structure in the coming weeks. Assuming weather is okay. It's all
Yeah.
winter contingent now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you mean the pylons aren't going in this fall?
They have to wait.
Yeah, when this went out to bid, we did some checking with some pile providers. There's been a lot of marine damage up and down both coasts, and piles are now being custom cut and cured and shipped, and it's about a 12 to 16 week
So are
lead
we
time.
able to do this work in the spring now? I thought we had to only do it in a certain time frame.
The pounding, so the pile driving by impact hammer is restricted to September and October.
So
Vibratory.
next year,
But vibratory work, demolition work, there's quite a few things that can be done.
so how does that affect us on that time frame for that grant we got?
The grant money is allocated when the project's finished.
No, I know, but there was a time frame on it too.
I
Had to be
think
completed by a certain date.
It's,
We got that
It's like-
extended.
I forget what it was.
it's,
2 years? Just 2 years.
And they already said we could, they know there's restrictions with permitting, they would extend it, but it's not,
Okay,
it's not gonna go away.
all right.
Only way it's not gonna, it will go away is if we don't do the work. And do our report.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just know we were pushing
No, you're right.
quick as we can because we wanted to get these in this fall. And that
do,
was why we
still do,
were
we still do, but
trying to do it.
it ain't gonna happen, I don't think.
And then I guess my last question, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but it's a lot of money. Obviously, we only did a resolution for a bond of 1.2 million.
and then the 313 gets us to 1.513.
But what is that, but that doesn't include all the engineering costs. So where is that money coming from?
That's a good question. That's something that the board would have to,
That was town cash, basically.
I mean, I'm just saying, we have to make some kind of resolution or something where we're getting this money. If the engineering cost is 175,000 or whatever it was,
141.
147,000, obviously if you have 147 through,
Most of that's been paid
and
already.
this.
Yeah, well,
No, it
that's
has been, I
already
know.
But I think the idea with that, most of that would come from fund balance, tarpon, park reserve, tan scammer, we had that laid out.
Yeah, but did we actually make any kind of formal transfer of money
we did.
We did.
for that?
We did.
140,000?
Yes.
Yes.
We did
I
that
don't
by
remember doing
resolution.
140,000.
We did
I remember
that-
doing 50,000.
No, we did that by
We
resolution.
did that by
140.
resolution.
We did from the, one of the funds, we transferred 50, and then there was 20,000 from Dan Scarra, 10,000 for,
Right, I remember that.
for the tower. We got a bonus for 10,000,
Tarpon, right.
and there was a home. there
Dan
was some-
scammer, park reserve was 50,000, tarpon was 10,000, fund balance was 765. So
All right,
that's
I just,
65
I didn't
to
remember we did the
75,
fund balance, that's why.
125.
I remember the other ones, but I didn't remember that. So I just want to make sure it's covered, that's all.
No, that's a good question. And that's why I asked Brendy to be here, because I want to be very transparent and look at the numbers as you indicated, so.
So if we don't go into this contingency,
We're good.
we're good. If we go into it, there's going to be additional funding we'll have to
That's exactly
utilize,
right.
right?
Yes, yes. And that's what I want the board to understand as we go into this project. You have any questions, Alan?
I'm good.
Ed?
I'm good.
Any more, Scott? Good questions. Appreciate it.
I've asked a lot of questions already.
Yeah,
You already,
I've had a lot of phone calls.
That's why we took the
we're good.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you very much, and
Brendy,
thank you for
I
coming.
thank you, and I wish you a safe trip home. I think you have to go back to Massachusetts tonight, is that
Yeah.
right? All right,
Oh,
so
boy.
have a
safe trip.
safe trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Too.
Appreciate you coming out.
And have a great Thanksgiving.
Tom, you have a question?
Well, the only question I would have is, when is this project due to start, based on the pilings happening later on, and when is the building permit expected?
So I think once we pass the resolution,
Right.
the process will begin, and make
starts.
sure they're in touch with you for the building permit, and those people come to you.
So the building
for-
permit's gonna
yeah,
happen now?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yep.
Because I think certain aspects are gonna happen now, building up to when the pylons go in.
gotcha.
You're gonna have to put in the budget for a new boat.
Or the fire
Inspections.
department boat, Tommy. Tommy, anytime you want, let me know, we'll get you the fire department boat.
Cost of what it would connect the existing dock to that dock? I know you talked about it once.
and we never.
It'd be like a rope bridge or something, but that's, we'll cross that bridge when it comes, pardon the pun. It's plausible, but,
It's plausible to do that though, or?
because you got that one dolphin out there, you'd have to
Yeah, the
incorporate
dolphin
that.
something.
So you'd have to do a rope bridge, platform,
Oh, yeah, that's right, you were saying like a rope bridge or
Yeah.
something.
it's kinda cool.
Okay.
All right.
Patty?
Good evening. I last appeared before the board, I believe, back in September to show some changes to the proposed site plan for Royal Energy, increasing the building size to 72,000 square feet. At that point in time, there were some comments issued, and we made some plan changes based on those comments. The building is now going to be fitted with a sprinkler system with a hookup for the fire department. We received a letter from the fire chief regarding that.
Is that one of the conditionals to get that all in place so that Tom could look at that and all that? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was one of the conditions of the final resolution.
Yeah.
And basically, when Tom reviews the building plans, the determination will be made on whether or not they actually need a sprinkler system at this point in time. Regardless, they're installing the system in the building. Whether or not they're going to have to provide a water supply at this point in time will be dependent upon what the building plans show.
Okay.
So until he gets building plans and does a full review of it, we really won't know whether they're going to need to charge the system. But regardless, the building is going to be fitted with the
Oh,
sprinklers
in
so
other words,
that,
there'll be a tank?
no, the
Nope.
tank won't go in unless it's required. But the sprinkler system, the sprinkler piping will be in the building so that it can be charged by the fire department, so they can hook up their water supply to it and charge the sprinkler
Yeah,
system.
at the last meeting that I think they were here, I asked to have that hooked up so they could also, if there was ever a water main going up the highway, that could,
Correct.
there'd be a plug-in at
Yep.
that point.
Absolutely.
And
that's how-
I gave Patty all the Dennis Larios' numbers for the applicant to look at.
Okay, they have
Yeah.
the whole review, because we
Yeah.
did have a water expansion numbers.
Yes.
marked, so we-
And we put a stipulation on the map. Zone RAG with BC overlay utilizing HD bulk requirements. Zone RAG with BC overlay contingent upon the new building being pre-fit for a sprinkler system during construction as per Town of Marlborough Town Board. So that also is a restriction that's been placed on the map.
So I need to be educated a little bit. So pre-charge meaning
Wet.
it's wet?
There's two different systems. There's a wet system, which has water in it 100% of the time. So if the head is activated through heat, it'll start to spray.
And where does the water come from?
It comes from a pipe. It's charged. So it's charged to the water main. So there's always water in
Oh, but that's if there's water
if
main.
there's water there, yeah.
And if there isn't a water main?
Then there's a tank with an electric pump.
So that's what we did with the pods. We put a 50,000
Tank.
gallon
And it has-
water tank.
And it has an external
And you
pump too.
also, what they're also putting in the building is I don't remember the term, on the outside of the building will be a connection, so that,
Standpipe.
a standpipe, so that the fire department with their trucks also would be able to charge the system.
But would it be too late if they, oh, so you're gonna determine, Tom?
building code
What you're
determines.
doing is asking them or mandating them to put the sprinkler system in the piping. But until I do the plan review and find out what the fire area is, it won't be determined whether the sprinklers are required or not by the fire code. The fire code will kick in after a certain amount of square footage. If the building sits the way it is at 72,000 square feet and it was wide open, then a sprinkler would be required. But if they came in and they chopped that into thirds, and I haven't seen the building permit yet, then it would reduce the fire area, and the fire area being reduced under the fire code wouldn't require the fire sprinkler system to be mandated. You're mandating the install
Right.
for the future use, but it's not being mandated by me as the building inspector under the fire code that has to be installed or charged.
Yeah.
Right,
It's there.
so
'Cause
is
under-
it partitionized right now?
It's supposed to be 6 partitions. When the gentleman was here, I think it was the gentleman that was here, showed us a plan. It was 6 compartments inside the building. So underneath international code, it reduced the square footage of each individual room, where they're negating the code for calling it for sprinklers. If they were to build it with 6 compartments and then change their mind and make it 2 compartments, no compartments, now we have a building without sprinklers. Or they would have to put them in, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Now it's gonna be built with the piping.
Okay.
So,
See, you knew,
that's what we
you knew when
mandated.
pods came in what they had. They were just, here it is, it's 60,000 square feet, done. I mean, I didn't even have to see the plans. We knew what was happening. I think what's happening here is the mandate for the system to be installed dry and ready to go if they decide at some point to break the 6 into 2 or into 1.
Okay.
So again, the requirement under my provisions, under my plan review, under the fire code, would have to exceed a certain amount of what they call fire area in an individual room.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I know that they did just hire a new architect.
Okay.
So that architect is reviewing with them now, the building plan. So was not involved, I think, when they came in with the
You
6
were,
bays. But I'm not sure that that is what they're proposing at this point in time.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they know what they're proposing at this
If they have to put a tank, what size tank would it be? Would it depend on how they
It
break
has
it up?
been-
That would, well, 40,000 square foot, the pods, initially they called for a 70,000 gallon tank. He negotiated with the fire department, to
Right.
go down to 50,000.
That's
I mean,
determined
we
by
saw
the
that
sprinkler.
tank, it was huge.
Based on square footage, what the
Sprinkler.
sprinkler heads,
Where would
do,
it go
the size
here?
of the pipe.
Would it go under the building like they
That's
talked
what I'm
about?
saying, if they have to do it, then it would go underneath the building, I think,
This
right?
would go
Pat?
under the building?
Yeah, they did show on the engineering, on one of the engineering plans, they did show the location of it if it's required. And it is.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So obviously you have to know what they're gonna do prior to them
It seems that
doing
way.
what they're doing, or
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it would
Prior
not-
to the build,
yeah,
I'll know what's going on.
And that would be up to the code enforcer.
Right,
So-
building permit's not being issued, so they're not digging holes or burying pipe until I know what they're actually doing.
Now, wouldn't, if, obviously it's not, but if there was town water there, they would neglect the point of having a tank, right? You would just hook
Right.
up
Correct.
town water.
If town water ever got there, then, and the system was there, set
It
to
would be
go, they
easy.
wouldn't have to put the tank in, they would just hook the town
And
water.
that was what Alan had, we requested and we got from Dennis, the cost of what it would be to bring the water down there. And we don't know, they don't know yet what a cost of a tank would cost them to put in yet, but I would assume a lot less.
So this new,
It would benefit them long-term if they were to have a water main
Yeah.
in the ground, because the proximity to a hydrant, based on the square footage of the building, would significantly reduce their fire insurance,
Right.
their property insurance. So, and I did relay that to the prior architects, but maybe not the new ones. So they were looking into it. With that, I went with Dennis and got a study done, basically a cost analysis of what it would be to loop the system past their building up Chestnut Avenue to Paula, to have another 9W crossing. That came out in the $860,000
Yeah.
range.
Yep.
Going up to the New York State Comptroller, we would immediately be denied because there aren't enough properties to
enough
pay that back.
It would
So-
cost too much?
What's that?
It would
Yeah.
cost
It
too
would-
much per
the-
property owner?
It would be, basically what it would be, the capital improvement part of the water bill would be too significant for the end user. So it would have to be spread out more, or we'd have to find money somewhere else, i.e., member item money, grant, or the developer themselves.
Or if the developer wanted to put in a lot more money.
Yeah, but in long term, if you think about it, I bet the cost of what he saves on his property insurance would reflect, you know what I mean? It's gonna be a significant reduction in cost than having that system, because those systems, the tanks in the ground still rely on a pump. So there's still some kind of a whoopsie in there. If the pump doesn't come on, if the pump wasn't serviced, whatever, so.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to see what it costs, what they have to do if they do a tank compared to the cost of running water. Is it
Yeah.
cost effective for them in the long run to bring water?
I think, we did our due diligence, and we supplied, and actually I supplied that to Patty for her applicant. And, yeah, I haven't heard anything. So it seems like it's a process that has to unfold, as far as when the architect comes back to Tom and says, we're putting petitions in, making it 6, then we go from there.
Yeah.
If they say, no, we don't want it, then we'll have to, I think before when we actually had the okay to go ahead with the pods, there was an outfit that actually guided us right or told us that, it had to be a certain amount of
That's
pressure.
correct.
Yeah.
The engineering done by the
Yeah.
sprinkler companies
Yeah,
It's-
determine the size of the tank, how much water is needed
It's
for
a-
X amount of time.
It'll
where it's
be
less
measured in
water.
gallons per minute
Gotcha.
for
Right.
fire load. That's how they'll do it, and that'll give you your tank, and it's a certain amount of minutes that the tank has to support the building with the fire. There's an equation that they
Right.
have.
Yeah.
One of the other things I did want to point out, because it was an item of discussion in September, was with regard to the propane tanks. The propane tanks were far away enough from the building, but too close to the boundary line. So they're going to be taking those 3 tanks. They're only used for a few weeks when they do the grape processing anyway, so they're going to remove those 3 tanks and replace them with one 10,000 gallon as we got a letter from the code enforcement.
Right.
Yeah, I think
From
the
Tommy.
code enforcer and the planning board were okay with that.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we just need to meet that code. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to,
Yep.
I think that was the other substantial change that was made since this board last saw the project. We did receive our final contingent approval from the planning board last Monday night. Obviously, one of the contingencies is this board moving forward with scheduling a public hearing and going forward with the BC overlay.
Yep, that's what we have in front of us today. So, and also in front of us, we're actually been discussing, and if you don't mind me asking your expertise, we're discussing about guidelines, design guidelines, and I know you do a lot of business throughout, all over. So, the discussion is about the design guidelines. We've gotten, Dennis Doyle has had a joint meeting with us and the town board and the planning board and ZBA, and they actually have a whole bunch of design lines that we refer to from the CAC, those where you could go and get those design guidelines. And the design guidelines has pictures and stuff like what the board would like to see, and it has a lengthy introduction to it, the history of Marlborough and stuff. It gives a little taste of what we're actually, the board is looking at. So, so we've been having discussions about how to go about one of my things that I asked the board, and we'll have this discussion on it, is to codify, not a shall, but will, applicants will look, in the BC district, will look at the design guidelines, and if they can't really, adhere to them, give an explanation why. And being in front of the planning board, going to the planning board meetings, I could see some of the issues that come up, like Mr. Topsy, Mr. Revisio. It would have been nice if he could have the building up front to 9W and the parking in the back, but he couldn't. And the planning board realized that because he needs a septic, right? And the septic was the only place to put the septic was in the front, right? So that these things led to a discussion, but Mr. Revisio did see the guidelines and he liked the pictures and stuff like that. So my question to you is, first of all, how do you feel as an engineer for the applicant about design guidelines? Is it a good thing? Does it help the applicant just to get a start?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the other thing I know that we do and this planning board does is they have these talks without the engineer and the lawyer. So if an applicant came up in front of them and said, this guideline, I love these pictures, I love this, but I can't do this. I can't put the canopy and the gas pumps in the back, I have to put them in the front. I think that gives an idea that the applicant actually looked at it,
Yes.
right? So I'm suggesting to the board that we put something in the code with the BC code that just implies that the town has a design guide, and not say shall, but will. I don't know what you,
Yeah, no, I mean, we, recently, in the last few years, they did that in the town of Lloyd on the 9W corridor in a certain area, basically from Haviland down into the, and I think that it's helped tremendously. It kind of gives everybody the guidance, because again, you know, planning and zoning is very subjective.
Right.
And so I think it is helpful to have guidelines that everybody is going to be following. You end up with more consistency, generally speaking, on your corridors. You don't end up with kind of a hodgepodge of everybody taking their own ideas on what they think is best. So I like design guidelines. It gives me, as a representative, something to show a client. Look, this is what the town is going to be expecting. This is what their goals are. And it gives everybody the same level playing field, that you know that you're working within those parameters.
yeah,
find
I
it
kind of
helpful.
agree, and I think that we have a bunch of tools now, especially with the Ulster County Planning, to have a gateway meeting, and I was pretty impressed with our planning board, you know, being open-minded about, you know, the photo simulation, you
Yes,
know, to see
and they
that.
will be requiring those on all 9W projects going forward.
Yeah, so we
because
kind-
again,
so-
it was kind of difficult, how do you decide which ones are going to have the impact?
So
So, yeah, absolutely. I
I
mean,
think there's a discussion that the planning board had with the chairman, is they all agreed that it would be implemented for
Across the
everybody.
board.
You know, not
Yeah.
pick and choose.
Right.
And stuff
So,
like that.
yeah, no, I think that's great moving forward. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I appreciate your input. I didn't mean to put you on the
No,
spot.
that's okay.
Thank you very much. Any
Thank you.
questions for Patty?
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Take care.
Thanks, Patty.
Anybody have any comments on the agenda? Okay. Sure.
Been a long day, man.
Yes.
When you get the point on the tier issue, could you lay out a little bit more clearly the expenditures and what grants are?
Yep. I'll have Mr. Baker do that.
That's why he gave you one.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
When we get to that point.
I don't have anything down for new business. Anybody would like to? No?
Where did you want to talk about the 23rd?
Oh, yeah, the 23rd. Okay, that's new business. Absolutely. Thank you, Howard. So,
I don't want to meet.
what's the board's desire? The 23rd, last time, I think it fell on the Christmas Eve.
This is the Monday before,
I
yeah.
think, I mean, I would
think-
like a break.
I think we've done a hell of a job this year, and we
I think-
deserve a break.
I think we've done enough.
Okay. Enough damage or?
We passed
Unless
enough
there's something urgent that needs to be
Unless
addressed.
there's an emergency out,
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't. We have
As long as
10
it
days to
doesn't
post.
affect payroll, because that's always the one thing.
Yeah, and so you brought that up, so I think we'll have to have a special meeting for,
So we gotta,
So we
New
gotta-
York.
we gotta
because of-
pass
yeah,
for payroll.
yep.
What, we gotta do
So
the abstract?
we'll let you know, stays tuned when that'll be. Just it'll be a special meeting just on the
If we
reorg.
don't approve abstract, people can't get paid.
Okay, I think the board's desire, could I have a motion that on December the 23rd, that there would be no town board meeting?
I'll second.
Don't jump.
That was on it, Ed.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So, I don't think there's anything on removal of tires still. I think we did the
Oh,
second one.
can I bring up something?
Sure.
Nothing on the removal of tires, but I did get a text and an email from the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. They are looking for indoor work, so I told them I'd bring it up tonight. If you guys can think of anything, if there's stuff we can move out of Tomback, or they're he's kind of looking for work, so.
You gotta put it, we need a place to put it.
Yeah, that's the problem, I know, but if,
We got a lot of stuff to move.
When do they have people to do this slope?
he,
Is it a certain timeframe?
he texted me and emailed to me today. Seems like he's raring to go. I don't know exactly.
I know,
Probably painting, yeah.
Other than that, I couldn't really think of anything.
I don't have any idea what we could do.
I mean, we wanna expand that space down there a little, but we don't, not.
We
with the
can't do
holidays and
anything
everything
until we
there,
have
it's
design,
like,
yeah, engineering drawings and stuff like that.
You don't even know anything.
Yeah,
We don't get it.
no, we
It's
don't.
dummy walls. There's nothing holding those walls up.
You know, on Tom Beck, you're talking about taking him down?
No, not Tom back. I'm talking about the highway department. Trying to make that storage room a little bigger. than
Well,
it
you know, we
currently
could
is.
look at that, right, Scott? I
So
mean,
that's
because,
something we could do.
yeah, because
Okay.
we were
This is-
planning on Mobile Life going down there, now they're at Pinnacle.
So that's the one thing is I was trying to make that room bigger because Jerry has stuff that we need to get secured.
Town has
Town
stuff.
has stuff we gotta get out.
Which room bigger, the one at the highway department?
Yeah,
Yeah.
1650.
So that would be ripping out stuff? I don't know if
Ripping some walls out, which they're dummy walls, so
Yeah,
they're
can-
not structural.
uh-huh.
And then probably rebuilding a few walls.
Yeah, I don't know about them rebuilding, but maybe, I don't know, you know, it's
Maybe
possible.
just ripping some walls
Yeah,
apart,
yeah.
maybe something, and then,
All right, well, I'll tell him that possibly, and I'll try to get an idea of the time frame.
all right,
Okay, and I'll let you know.
okay,
Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Howard.
Yep.
As you know, all the paperwork has been accomplished, sent that in at Tomvac. The last one, there was a few questions that I had to answer, re-answer. I sent that in, that was 2 weeks ago, I haven't heard anything.
That's a good thing.
So that's a good thing. So we're moving forward. The CAC update, I know, I know Scott has some questions on that. So I'd like some guidance from the board of how to move forward. I think, in my opinion, it's a pretty good document. It's a living document. It could be changed. It just, my feeling is it should be somehow reflected in the BC code so people know that we have the design guide rules and
It is, though.
it is, not really.
It says right in there that you're supposed to go by the design guidelines. It's in there, code.
Yeah, it's in there, it's in one section, it's kind
Yeah,
of,
it's in there.
kind of
We
a,
put it in there, and that's why we said we gotta get the design codes done, because it's in the code
Yeah.
already.
I like to make it so this way.
make it a little bit stronger, maybe.
Yeah, just a little stronger in, a discussion with me.
Yeah, I think, like I said in my email, today, as long as it's a suggestive document as opposed to, a mandate, because some of the stuff in there, just with the way the properties, and how they lie on the corridor, it's gonna be a little bit impossible. And, some of it, like I said, with the parking lots to the rear, in a lot of situations, I don't think that's practical. I mean, if I have a seafood restaurant, where's my dumpster gonna go? Out front, or is it gonna go out in the back next to where you're parking?
I agree. I agree with you, and I also agree with Scott in his positions. I'm just saying that it's a guideline, but to make it so that it's no, in the BC area where the codes, because talking to Tom, we have a few codes that we like to implement, and this is one of the small changes, that just to let them know that the town of Marlborough's design guidelines, something to the effect that they're there, and we would appreciate or will, not shall, appreciate you looking at the guidelines and discussing to the planning board or to the code enforcer or the town, if it's a BC district, it has to go through the town first anyhow, right? And we have to do all the implementation, we have to look at the drawings, it's pretty much there before it goes to the planning board. So I'm just saying that somehow we make sure that they actually look at the design guides. And
Yeah.
then they would come into the planning board and say, well, we really, like you just said, Alan, we can't put the parking to the side. We have to have dumpsters, we're doing a restaurant and stuff like that, something like that. So you kind of create this dialogue with the applicant. That's all
I
I'm
think,
suggesting.
yeah, and I think along with that, I think, because I hear a lot of people that go to the planning board, and they get through it, but there's sometimes a lot of frustration that's involved with it. I think it almost might be a better idea if there was a prospective applicant to go in front of the planning board, I think they should go and just have like a meeting with them, like, without engineers, without lawyers.
That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's how it should always start, because it seems to me, and people, they have to keep coming back, and it seems to me like, I've had a lot of people tell me, the planning board's changed their mind 4 times on me, I have to redraw my drawing. Well, that's cost. There's a lot of expense into it, because they did what was told to them, and then they come back the next month, and all of a sudden, somebody's got a better idea on the planning board.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, Alan, I would disagree with that. Being present on a lot of planning boards, that doesn't happen. Our planning board,
I would disagree with that.
why is
It
that?
happens.
it happens, yeah.
It happens.
When they give you a list,
get the same
they want you to have the 8 things done, you get the 8 things done, you come back and then Pat has 4 more for you.
Exactly,
Happens all the time.
Well,
It
that-
took Steve Rubicchio 8 months
yeah.
to get a 1-acre lot.
Yeah, but,
And I'm not just talking about-
that's unfair unless
I don't think
you
Steve knew what
went
he
to
was gonna
each
do.
of those meetings
I
and
was at the meeting,
Well, I was too, and a
and
lot,
Steve did the 8,
Yeah.
he came back with 4,
yeah,
and
but
came back
no-
with 3 more.
in all fairness, they always just asking, what would you like to do with this piece of property, right?
Not only that, the one, and I can give you the specific if you want, it was on the DOT road cut, and I think I addressed this in front of the town board with the sidewalk, that the DOT, he presented it to the planning board with the sidewalk in the right of way, and the planning board accepted it. And then all of a sudden, it was changed, and they wanted it outside of the right of way because the DOT had changed it. So
Yeah, because
he had to redraw the
DOT
map.
changed their.
That's the
and
DOT.
they were aware of it.
No,
The
but the planning board-
DOT wants it in
But
their.
that had been a year prior, that the DOT had changed that requirement. So he had to have the maps redrawn for that. Then it was the parking, that Mr. Garofolo made some comments on the parking. So the parking was there, and they approved it, and there was no comment on the parking, and then all of a sudden, the parking requirement came in, and he had to have the maps redrawn again, because the parking requirement was outside the DOT right of way or within the DOT right of way, so he had to have them redrawn again. So there wasn't a comment March, but then the comment was there in May.
I would say that was a pretty,
And
a
just-
rare occasion.
Just for a matter of public record, I'm not only talking about Mr. Revicio. There's other applicants that have been in front of the board.
It's just the one reason.
This is one reason, that, again, they're asked to do 13 things. They comply with the 13, they go to the next meeting, and they want 7 more.
I don't see that. I go to the planning board.
I'm just listening to my
Patty Brooks,
constituents,
Do you
Al.
see that?
Yeah, basically what happens is, I wouldn't say that they are, only speaking from my own experience, I don't think that they're generally new comments. I think it's, we ask you to
Clarification.
address X, you addressed it, but maybe not clearly enough, or you didn't address it the way we needed it addressed. Basically, those are the consultant's comments
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, maybe because I represent so many clients in so many municipalities, I can tell you that some of them are more streamlined than others. I'm quite happy working in the town of Marlborough. I think there's good communication with the board, good communication with the consultants. It's the process that you go through in any municipality. And I can tell you that there are quite a few that are much
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some that are really tough.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that one-on-one, not the one-on-one, but the one meeting with the planning board, you know what I mean? And if it goes A to Y, give the applicant that. Let them try to do it, because you gotta remember, it's cost to the applicant. Not only, the planning does cost them money as well, plus it's time.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, sometimes these could get pushed back 8 months, sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 8 months, sometimes it's a couple of years. You know what I mean? So, it's
Sometimes
only
it's
to be fair.
the applicant's
You know,
fault.
and-
Yep.
And
I mean-
in a couple of years, you have to look at the applicant, you have to.
Well, look,
I
I'm
mean,
not blaming any, what I'm
No, I'm
saying is,
saying,
what I'm
too,
saying
is-
is that I
is-
think we get the process where it's a little more streamlined for all parties involved, so it's both sides.
I think what you're suggesting, and I think Al mentioned before, yeah, sort of an unofficial pre-meeting, like the gateway meeting for the Ulster County, but our own little gateway meeting.
Exactly.
And I think the guidelines help in that regard because we're sort of giving a vision of what we want them to do. It's not telling them what they can't do, it's more telling them this is what we kind of like it to look like. so they have more of a vision to begin with, and it's more proscriptive, I guess, rather than prescriptive.
And then they can take that package, and when they meet with their architect, they could say, I'm working with the town of Marlborough. These aren't mandates, but they are suggestives, and they would like to see these on
Yep.
the drawing. So within this drawing, the functionality of this property, can you include these? So I
Right.
don't have to come back
Right.
and pay you again to do it. That's all I'm saying.
I think the planning board would welcome that, for
Yeah,
sure.
I think the applicants would welcome it too.
Yep.
That's why I'm putting it out there. I mean, it's just, it'd be nice to have a nicer streamlined process. And again, I've been on the board for 6 years, and I hear it every cup of coffee at Stewart's, every time I stop to get a sandwich. If someone's in front of the planning board, it's how come they have to come back? How come I have to come back? How come I have to come back?
It's the process we have, and it's
So,
not that different
let's just
than
look
any
at
other
the
town.
process then.
I mean,
I would
Patty's
say-
been doing this for 30 years in this town, right?
Yeah, I went,
41, okay.
and look, in all fairness, I went through this in another town with a personal, with property of mine.
My father before.
It took me a bunch of meetings to go through it too, so it's not just
It
us,
is
right?
frustrating, yeah.
So I get it, and that's what I tell the people that are telling me this, but I think if we can maybe have that, we'll just,
Well, I think you're also getting at the point, if we add on all these extra things we want them to do, is it gonna make it even more?
cost prohibitive, exactly,
of
yeah.
a
You don't wanna make it
process.
cost prohibitive.
That's all.
It's
Is it gonna
your-
make it more?
Hopefully
it's what
not,
you
hopefully less.
foresee is what you want to see the 9W corridor.
Sure.
I mean, but like I said, it's not shall, it says you will, in some kind of legal term, look at the design guidelines, and if you can't do them, then just give a discussion to the planning board or the town board, because the BC allows them to come in front of us, why you can't do it. That's all I'm saying. It just gives them a
I think
heads
we
up.
gotta look back at that code, because I think it already does
I
say.
think, yeah, you're right,
I
does
think
it?
it already does say
It does say
But
the design
you gotta
guidelines.
look back at the code, it already says it. That's why we started this whole process.
It does, but I don't think it says it in
but
the,
doesn't say it-
in the overlay district. I think it needs to be
applies.
repeated.
It's in the business
yeah,
corridor
it's in the
overlay
BC.
district wording.
I'm not
Maybe it is,
deciding-
okay.
I'm not
I don't
debating.
see where it has F, criteria for rezoning and determining whether or not they need to meet the following criteria, and then they list 7 items. But I didn't see in here anywhere where it talked about the.
There's definitely a spot that says.
There
you
is,
gotta- You gotta look at
There is, but I don't
these
think,
guidelines.
you're definitely right.
and that's why we actually started
I think I said
having the
that.
CAC look at the guidelines, because it was in our code, and we said we have something in our code that we don't even have yet, when we did it.
You're right, Scott, it is in there, but I think it needs to be a little more
I don't
explicit.
know where it is, but I know it's in there, so.
I didn't see it when I read through it, but.
It's in section 135-7.
Like I said in all my notes, I don't have a problem with any of these these things that we want everybody to look at. I do have a problem with, and if you're saying it's not required, I don't foresee someone putting a gas station with the pumps behind their building. I just don't see that ever happening, and that we're putting that in a design code is almost, we shouldn't even put it in here, because it's never gonna happen. It's probably never, ever gonna happen. Why do we put it in there? Because no one in their right mind is gonna put pumps behind their building. It's just not gonna happen. The same thing what Alan just said about, and I agree with you, I hate seeing parking lots on 9W, but in most cases, you had a ShopRite or any of these stores, the parking lot's in the front of the building.
And
It's just
that's-
because he said, for the reasons that he
Well,
said.
maybe they can put it
That's
on-
where people park, they deliver stuff, they put the
So-
big dumpsters, they put the trash compactors, they put.
So that's a bad example, so maybe,
But I mean,
or
we're
maybe they
putting
have
it
a
in the
discussion and maybe they put part of it on the side or something like that.
I think you can, that's the whole thing
That's
about
the
the
whole
design. It's not, you have to put the pumps and the canopy in the back. But the discussion is if some new gas station
Well,
wanted
what
to come.
happens is that goes in there, the planning board's gonna want it,
No.
it holds the guy up at the meeting,
No, no,
and then
no.
he's gotta get a direction from the county, which is gonna say, yeah, we want it in the back, then it comes back, then the planning board's gotta overrule it, so it adds to the process. My point is,
It could, or
it
it could,
shouldn't even be in there.
it could
That
be-
part shouldn't be in there.
Well-
That's all I'm saying, that
Well,
part shouldn't be in there.
my,
That one specifically is a tough one, because if you're saying that you will look at it, but then you have to explain to the board why you can't do it. If a gas station comes in and they can put it in the back, but monetarily, they're not gonna do that. They're just not gonna put the gas pumps in the back.
It's
It'll
not
never
gonna
happen.
happen.
well, that's a reason, that's a good reason. Financially, it's not feasible, that's a good reason.
everybody's
That's a
gonna try it.
justifiable
That's the
reason,
Then why
today,
put it in there?
No gas station will ever put one in the back.
maybe.
That's my point. Why,
Ever.
why put it in our guidelines if it's never gonna happen? My point is take that part, I'm not saying don't put the rest in, take that part of the guideline out.
Okay.
And it's just an
I
example.
can live with that.
Just going back to the grocery stores. Across the river, there's a town where a large grocery chain wanted to come in. Well, they mandated that they wanted to put it in the parking in the back. They said no, so they had to surround the entire property with trees. All right. So you know what that big chain did? About
Moved across
maybe
the
10
street.
years later, they abandoned their building and they built one across the street, the traditional look, on an older site plan.
They did it in Hyde Park.
They did it. That's
There are
Hyde Park. I
always
was
going to
throw
be
the name out
instances
there.
where you
But
can
that building now
point
sits
that.
empty.
Great design guidelines, we looked at Hyde.
Yeah, but that just shows you there
That just
that
happens
Stop
at
and
every
Shop went
store.
from here
But
to here.
that's the planning board, that's a different planning board. I mean, you can't judge our planning board.
I'm
with
not
that
judging them,
planning
I'm
board.
using that
I
as an
mean, if
example.
you're-
You're saying as an example.
I'm as an example.
So you don't like the, yeah, okay, so you don't like the
Well, that's the
gas pumps in the
discussion.
back,
That's what we're having a
because that'll
workshop.
never happen. I get that, but what, are you okay with, the bigger picture is, let's have something more explicit in our code that says you will refer to our guidelines when you're doing a site plan on the Route 9W corridor, so that it is part of the process that the planning board has to follow, because I'm worried about.
I don't like the word will. I don't.
What's the purpose of having design guidelines if it's an optional thing for, depending on whether it's Tuesday?
I think Tommy had a great example, because once you say you will, and the excuse is kind of
Well,
like,
then-
well, I can do this, but I choose not to, the planning board could just say, well, then you can't have, you can't.
I
do
don't
it.
think our planning
Well, the
board's going to do that.
planning board, even
You
though
can't speak for a planning board. You
I'm
can't-
not gonna-
And you're only looking at today's planning board. This is something that's in the code forever. So in 20
So
years
then-
from now, it could be another planning board that says, guess what? We're not allowing anything because the guideline says this and it says you will, and that's it.
They're guidelines, first of all, and
But what I think you do is, what you do with our fee schedule, is you put in there, maybe more clear, to refer to this, thing, but don't put it in the code book. 'Cause if you put it in the code book,
That's it. You're
it's
done.
gone. It never could change. You guys could do the
well,
fee
we're not
schedule.
talking about putting the guidelines in the code book.
All right, just
The
put
guidelines,
wording, refer
you
to the
refer to the
guidelines.
guidelines, which
That's
are a
what we're
separate
saying.
document.
That's fine.
No, the design
It's up to you
guideline,
guys to decide,
I'm not,
but I'm saying.
we're not codifying this at all.
All right, because I'm thinking,
No.
I only started reading what you gave me, and if that whole thing was going in the code book,
It's
No.
not.
I'm like, holy smokes.
It says you
so
will refer to the design guidelines.
That's fine,
guidelines,
because then you guys can change it at any time without
yes,
changing
That's the whole
it's a
point.
living document. You know, if it works, it works.
fee
If it
schedule.
doesn't work,
That's
it
correct.
doesn't work.
So then
Fee
you
schedule
drop
changes
out, you
anytime
drop
by
out, you
resolution.
try for a year, and everybody says you're idiots for putting that thing about the pumps in the back. You take it out, and that's all you do. You just make an edit, and it's done.
Yeah, I was under the assumption you were putting
No,
this
we're
in
not
the code book. You kept
codifying
telling me
No, we're not
about code
codifying.
changes in code book.
Not at
We're
all.
not
All right, that's what you
codifying,
kept saying, code changes, code books.
No.
no.
Fee schedule, line 2, must refer to the town of Marlborough schedule or the
Whatever.
design criteria.
Wherever it's appropriate, wherever it makes sense to put it. And
Right, as long as that's-
Scott's right, there is something about design guidelines already, but I think it needs to be a little bit stronger, and that's all. I mean,
Right, as long as the design
a sentence or
criteria is
two.
not in the book. As long as it's a living document outside the book, then you guys, it's easier.
It's just
for
sort
you
of
guys
like
to
another
move around.
tool, but you need to use this tool.
I just want to make sure that we're making, like I said, I agree with 90% of the whole thing.
You said that.
I just, I
It
think
might be
let's,
100% if we take the edit.
there's a
thing out
couple
about
things
that.
that I think, why put them in there if they're not really going to ever happen? Just don't even have them in there. But I agree with a lot of it, but I don't agree with that with the gas pumps, I think, because that's probably never going to happen.
So, can we make a compromise?
So compromise.
So we take that out about the gas pumps, because I think I saw Mrs. Brooks' head saying that ain't gonna happen. And so I agree, take it out of the guidelines, but agree for the other stuff that, like Tom says, that's a living document, we keep that separate, we just make a reference to it in the code book when we make the edit changes.
But do you agree, I don't know what the other guys, do you agree with having along the major part of .9W, requesting that parking lots be in the rear? I mean, this one to me is kind of like a,
I think it's.
Yeah, but that one they could play with. They could look at the thing and say, yes.
Lay of the
no, maybe.
land.
That's not an impossibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I can agree when it's closer to the hamlet, you don't want to see that in the hamlet, right? Right, if you're in the hamlet, that goes behind. Right. And that's what I was saying when I wrote back to the board. I said I agree to that in the hamlet section. I don't necessarily agree to it on the major corridor of the
where's the
highway.
hamlet?
But like Highland, they made, they had
It
a,
guidelines, it says hamlet and it says 9W, right?
so like
So there's two
Highland was
sections.
a dollar store. They couldn't put the parking in the back, so they compromised, they put it on the sides. It seems to work.
Right. So here's my last question, because
That's what I'm saying,
I just got that email and I started reading through it, it's very long. But the question is you're referring to the BC district. But if I come in and I'm on the 9W corridor
Yeah.
and I'm in the HD
It's gonna bring that
district,
up.
are you not applying the same criteria?
No, I think
We'd
You're
like
just talking
to-
about BC right now.
We'd
Yeah,
like
that's
to
what we're doing.
So
apply
I
it.
come in, I got HD,
I got you, Tom. I got you. So I think we would like to apply it to the whole 9W corridor.
But technically, everything's in the BC district on 9W, 500 feet off the side.
250.
well, the BC, again, the BC district, I wouldn't call it the BC district on your wording, because the BC district doesn't exist until you drop
Till we
Yeah,
drop it.
that's correct, that's absolutely
it.
correct.
So you can't call it the BC, if you're in the BC district, you have to abide by this, because nobody's in it. Unless the
So
two
that's
people
where,
you approved so far.
where you're right, because like like I said, there's something somewhere in the BC district part of it that says refer to the guidelines, but it should be somewhere in the code that says anywhere along the 9W corridor,
You must refer to this
you should
document.
refer to
Yeah, you can't just say BC.
the guidelines.
Okay, I'm in agreement.
Still
hashing
hashing
it around.
internally, but
It's
we,
still-
We
Would you
did
like to
show
look
it
at it?
to Ulster County Planning, and, you know, they had very few comments. They actually liked it, because we've referred to the county standards in the document, the living document that we could change all the time, so. We'll take out the gas station thing, and you agree with the rest of the stuff, Scott?
make sure that pertains to the
And
entire
Alan?
corridor.
Alan said yes.
Yeah, and I think the next step
I
is
don't
to,
agree, I said I still don't agree with the parking lots along the 9W corridor, I agree with it in the Hamlet section. And there's two sections in this guidelines, one is.
It's a suggestion. If they could do it, it'd be nice to have, like, even in the future, 20 years from now, you're saying that we have some sidewalks, it would be right there in front, and there you would have your business, and then the parking is in the back. It's just a suggestion. Like Mr. Revisio, he couldn't do it, it was in the back, no matter how many times he came back, we kind of got it straight. You know,
I'm fine now, go forward.
okay,
Gas station's out.
okay.
Grocery
so the next step would be to figure out where the code needs to be modified, right, Al?
Okay.
To
And I'll
refer
let
to the,
you know, I'll ask the attorney if it's all right with the board.
Man, this has been a long process, this.
Yeah,
Well, it's a couple of
important
years,
stuff.
it's been in front of, we showed it a couple of years ago.
It's not easy.
We showed it just recently.
I did like the pictures at the end, though, I think that's the nicest thing, when you
we,
have pictures.
we did start with this design guide using Highlands as a guide, and we found it, little
They were
difficult.
They were strict.
They were very
had-
strict, and we didn't want to go that.
Yeah,
They were very,
Yeah,
very.
yeah, so that's
Yeah, that's-
what took us a while.
okay. We heard about the Milton Landing South Pier. Any more discussion with the board?
Nope.
Moving forward, we had a request from the employee benefits. One of the requests was to buy the fifth week. The other request, we really, myself and Scott went over, we really don't, it's longevity. $1,000, 10-year service. Then there's a longevity, $500, 10 years of service, plus 100 every year after a max of 1,500. Kind of agreed on that one. But it's the board's desire what they like to do. So we're open for discussion. Scott, would you like to say anything about that?
I would say that I know through mine and Al's budget time, going through budget and meeting with heads of department, and then actually talking to individuals within the town, and then going through labor negotiations this year. This came up a lot with our non-union employees, that they feel like they're not getting any kind of love like some of the unions do for, being here for extended period of time. So I think me and Al had the discussion, and Chris brought up some numbers for us that we presented you guys, and I feel very comfortable with that third option of the $500 for the 10th year and then 100 thereafter up to the $1,500 max. For non-union employees, this is only, we do gotta make a clause somehow for Jerry, because Jerry is technically not in the union anymore, but he does go by union pay scale and all their kind of union contract that they have on sales. So he already gets longevity, is what I'm getting at. We can't pay longevity twice, so there just have to be some kind of wording. No double dipping, we're gonna call it. So, but that's my opinion.
What about longevity for council?
Yeah.
On my
Well,
13th year.
Where we deduct.
That was another thing, same thing. So the thing is there longevity for councilmen and elected
Voters, please
officials?
vote me in. I'm close to longevity.
So our request was gonna be non-elected, it would be exempt to elected officials. Now, you guys, if you wanna do it for elected
So
officials.
that would be the high,
So this is just
would be
for
the
the
highway
employees, so I'm gonna
superintendent, too.
skip right over us and the elected officials.
superintendent and town clerk?
No, he would be not getting it either.
he wouldn't be getting either, he's elected.
He's
He's
elected.
elected.
New York State elected
So
official.
that's what I mean, it does affect certain people that are elected but are actually kind of full-time employees, right? Even though they're elected. Yeah,
don't
like
get
the town clerk and the
Town
and
clerk
highway
and the-
superintendent.
two.
So,
And us,
What do we talk about?
and the judges.
And the judges.
So the other thing is, and the column.
All right, the judges.
So who would be affected by this? Tom, Cindy Hilbert, Kathy Naitman, Tina Rosa,
Danielle.
Chris Wilco. These guys want to say it, or you want me to read this? Charlie Maggio,
yep, he's,
Danielle Whittenby, Michelle Edwards Whittenby, Kathy
No, they
Wilco.
will,
Eventually they would be.
Oh, because you're on the year.
Yeah, it's 10 years.
10 years it kicks in? 500, 500 each year,
And,
up to a max.
$500 at the 10th and 100 after that, up to
Right.
15.
15 max.
and Renee and Penny will not be.
Excuse me?
The cost to the town would be $8,700 right now.
Right now it goes up.
So what's the board's desire?
How much was the total? I don't remember. What was it? What did you say the total was?
Right now, 8,700.
Yeah,
And there was another, the other proposal was,
The other
Sweeter.
proposal was to buy, whoever gets 5 weeks to buy one of the
yeah,
weeks.
was there another longevity proposal?
That's not a
1,000.
longevity proposal, that's to buy out the 5th
the
week.
second longevity proposal was the $1,000 at 10 years.
Too sweet, yeah.
And then $100, and it was more,
It would be 2,000 max.
so,
Okay.
yeah, it was a lot more.
That package would be 12,200, and the package to buy out, that would be, I think,
The
So
buyout
it's
package for a
Tom.
week is a lot less.
yeah, 6,357.
The new employee handbook, the maximum all new employees could get is 4 weeks, so they would never be able to get a 5th
Yeah,
week.
so,
There's only so many people that would have a 5th week.
Right.
And then a lot of the employees that we did talk to said that they didn't feel like that was like an extra bonus because you're using my time to get paid or something like that. So
So
that's
this-
why we kind of shied away.
this would be part of their total salary package, and it
Yeah.
wouldn't be 1099, it wouldn't be
This would
bonus,
be every year.
Every
of the year they
and it would be
Yeah.
paid into as, on top, as part of the salary, it would accrue as a salary.
Right.
Be a check, a
Yeah,
longevity
so it would
check.
Be a
affect retirement, is
longevity
what I'm
check.
asking.
Yep.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I think these guys, you get it twice, you do it a split or once, your longevity check? They get it once. Once, yeah, so, yeah, it'd be once a year. Same time that the union.
What do you get at the end of the year?
So,
You get at the end of the year, Chair?
Yes, that's right.
That's a good idea.
And that's what Chris requested, on the anniversary date, they would get it.
so just to let you know, Alan, Tom, Cindy, Kathy, Tina Rosa, Chris Wilco, Charlie Maggio would get to buy the 5th week. That would be $6,357.71. Future employees who would have the option to buy 1 week is Danielle, Michelle Edwards, and Kathy Wilco, and that would be another $2,001 for $148.65. Danielle's would be in the year 2029. Michelle would be in the year 2029, and Kathy Wilco would be in the year 2023. So those are the two options that I think myself and Scott really favor. We favor more the longevity, the 510 years of service, and $100 every year, max of $1,500. And that number again was $8,700. And that would be every year. And it would have to be included in the handbook. And
We have to update the handbook, which is not.
that's no. So, what's the board's desire?
I'm good with the 8,700. I'm fine with the 8,700.
So having said that, how are you, Howard? I'll make a motion.
Option number 3.
Option number 3. I'll make a motion that the town board for non-union, non-police chiefs, non-elected officials, right, will receive, starting in 2020, on their anniversary date, a longevity payment plan based on 10 years, $500, $100 every year thereafter, up to a maximum of $1,500. That's my motion.
Second?
I'll second.
I think, let's, so this is pretty important. Let's
Should we do
just,
this in a resolution?
I was just gonna say.
I think we could do a motion, but I think if we, Danielle takes down who approved it, I think it would be just as fine. I think it's just as well.
Well, we're doing a motion now, but a resolution.
Yeah, should-
Chris said that after you made a motion, she would like to put it in a resolution.
In the
Yeah, I think
resolution?
it should go in a
Okay,
resolution.
we'll form it as a
And
resolution.
do it next
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, December.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Chris this afternoon.
So I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Al brings up a good point. At the next meeting in December, we'll have a resolution where we'll all vote on it.
Well, I think we also do that, if we can get it done by then, Al, that's where we can also update the employee handbook, get it all in one shot. Right?
Yeah.
That's, because the employee handbook's kind of like these guidelines. Either you could update it, it's a living document. You could just keep updating it.
Yep,
Very
I
easy.
agree. Okay. Correspondence. Do I have any correspondence? Do you have any correspondence?
I have nothing right now.
I don't think I do. No.
All right. No correspondence.
No correspondence. But I just want to just, so at the farmer's market on Saturday, I just want to let everybody know, and maybe we could put this on the website, if the board agrees, about the 2020 census. So anybody that is, would like to do the census, they're looking for people, and you could actually apply, and you could get any information you would like at 1-855-job-2020. And I think this is a good opportunity for people who may be looking for something to do, you know, maybe a student or something, so it's just to see where they could fit in. So it's a good thing.
Did you get one from the bocce team?
Bocce ball court about the,
Yeah, I thought you got it right. I thought you got a note about that.
hey,
What?
you see your fellow,
That's all right. I just ignore them.
Where's those gutters, Eddie? Come on.
all right, moving along. Any public comments? James, come right up.
First, I'd like to wish the supervisor, members of the board, members of the public, I hope you all have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've given me a lot to talk about up here from your discussions. One thing I would make sure is that you decide whether or not, you talked about elected officials, There are also people that are appointed, and I don't know as if you really want to include appointed people too. So you should decide
We
that.
got that.
We already did that.
Well,
Okay.
appointed is Tina and
Charlie.
Charlie, so,
And Danielle.
and,
All the boards, okay.
Well, you have the, you
and the
have
budget
the,
officer, but they're
Chris.
included.
yeah, you have the ethics board, the planning, those are
They don't
appointed.
They don't get paid.
No. We're good, James.
But,
We're
okay, I
clear
just
on
wanted to
that.
make sure that you
I
were clear on
appreciate
that.
I think you made a good point. We gotta also include in there, not the zone, the ZBAs and the planning board is not included.
And the ethics board.
And the ethics board, all those boards, that is a good point.
Two of them
I-
Good point.
I certainly want to encourage you to pass both resolutions. I can certainly see why you would want an 8-foot rather than 2 4-feet or 1 4-foot, because when you have somebody with kids, somebody who has problems with mobility, you definitely want to have 8 foot, particularly when you're talking about big ships, unloading them, you want 8 feet. I certainly encourage you to deal with that. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the planning board, having been to many board meetings. I've been doing this for 30 years. I did other things before that, but I've been doing this for 30 years for Tim Miller Associates. And this can be a long process. Sometimes the consultants don't understand what's needed. Certainly, the planning board has opened opportunities for developers to come in and talk to them without the planning consultant, without the lawyer, and people have taken advantage of this. But it is not an exact science doing this. The more information that the developers have and the consultants can take to the developers, the better off you are. Part of the issue is making sure when the plans go to a public hearing that they are as good as you can get them. And I will have to say that I come and sometimes I say things because to me, having worked in the field, they're very obvious, and I say these things and I want the changes, and hopefully the planning board will agree to them. Sometimes they don't, but I think that's a very good reason for you five to eventually put me on the planning board, because maybe I can get these things done earlier in the process for you.
Your application, but
Thank you.
And, you know, I even tell Patty sometimes, before she gets to that point, you know, these are some of the things I see, you might want to look at them. Because you do want to make it easier for them, okay? You do want to make it easier, but you also want good projects. In terms of the terminology, there's 3 basic words. There's may, which you have no preference. There's should, which is you have a preference that it be done. There's shall, which requires it. Will and shall are really the same thing, but the difference is when you say you shall put in parking in the back is different from you saying you shall look at putting parking in the back. And that's the difference, okay? You don't necessarily want to tell them they absolutely positively have to do that, but you may, in many circumstances, say, we definitely want you to look at doing something. And that's the difference, really, in your terminology, is what you require them to do and what you require them to just look at. And it may be a simple one-sentence thing saying, you know, we looked at this, we can't do this because of X, Y, Z. Fine. They at least thought about it. And if it's not in some kind of guidelines, nobody may think about it at all.
That wasn't bad, James. Thank you.
I'm losing my voice already. But the other thing you may want to do on the website is put the, when you have people who are elected for a certain period, show what their period is. When they're elected, or when they're appointed, if they have a term, to show what the term is on the website. I think that would be a good thing to do.
I had hair the first time I was elected. I said I had hair the first time I was
I was
elected.
wearing a diaper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
James.
Thanksgiving.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comments?
He's like, I need one more thing, one more thing.
Oh, sit down.
The code.
Get the timer out now.
No, I'm just a resident.
3 minutes.
I need 2, I don't even need, I need 1 minute. I need 1 minute on Tom back. I see that we didn't put a rec director or anything in this year's, we have to decide what we're doing with that. I've got a huge sign on the door. Do not put anything in here for storage. I did the fire code, I had the sticker made, and the storage room is loaded with stuff again. It's loaded. They paid for Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We changed the locks, cost us hundreds of dollars to change the locks. They still have access to the locks. He's in there on Monday. The town board approved Marlborough Youth cheerleading Monday, Wednesday, Friday, opposite the days they pay. They were thrown out on Monday because somebody's in there on Monday and refused to get out and they don't pay. We need, if this is a town property, we need somebody scheduling it, somebody looking at it, and somebody collecting the money and making sure it's done. That's all I'm asking. And for them to obey the signs so they don't burn the place down, and they stop drilling holes in the rafters and hanging things from the metal rafters without engineers looking at it or asking us to do it. That's all I'm asking, and it just hasn't happened. So I implore you to put some money, find some money, and get somebody in charge of that combat, because tomorrow I'm gonna have to tape it off, and nobody's gonna be allowed in it tomorrow for Zumba, because they have all this garbage in the room that I have signed.
What room did they have?
The electrical room that had all the storage, that I put everything in the middle of the floor, and it had a big sign put on the door, per fire code section so-and-so, so-and-so, there cannot be storage in this room. And I went in the other day, and it's loaded with storage again. They got all their stuff in
The
there.
same stuff?
Same stuff, put it all back. And that's on a day that they're not paying for. They're not supposed to be there. That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that needs, with what Tom just said, that really needs to be adhered to,
Okay.
seriously.
We voted to keep it, let's make it a town facility, and let's police it. That's all I'm asking. Or somebody gets hurt there.
Okay.
We do gotta, I mean,
So that's,
we are gonna have to address this sometime, somehow. We have to, we're moving forward with renovating the whole building, right?
cleaning out the stuff?
Well, we gotta clean out the stuff, but I think to the point of Tom's making is we
Yes,
really
it'll be
gotta
2 years
figure
before
out-
we have a,
figure out how we're gonna manage this, right?
I think
yes.
basically they've been paying their rent, right? Or is it not the proper rent? They haven't been paying their
If they're in there, if they're in there on
They're
a
in on
Monday,
Monday, they're not paying.
they're not paying rent.
I asked the town board for the approval for 40 residents to be on there for cheerleading on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they got thrown out on Monday. And she wanted to come in and say how disrespectful they were to her.
The cheerleaders
The
got
cheerleaders got thrown
Who
out
have the
on
building
Monday.
signed out?
Huh?
How did that work? Because they have the building signed out.
Well, that's the thing, where do we sign it out? The sign out was I came to you guys, asked you to have it for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you said yes. That was the sign out. There's no sheet, there's no book, there's nobody in charge of it.
have been in there anyway, right?
it
Well, they're
wasn't
supposed to
she.
be there Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and they're supposed to be piggybacking each other. And then
Who's collecting the,
Joe went back to using Monday again.
But he just neglected to tell anybody, or?
And we had this,
Has the keys there?
we had this major discussion when this happened with the cheerleader thing, right? And we actually let him stay there on Monday, and the cheerleaders rescheduled their time. But this is something that, if we go by what we passed, right, in our resolution, he's not supposed to be there on Monday. He's supposed to be piggybacking off of Zumba. They have a 2-hour slot, right?
who's he?
But you had a conversation with Joe and you said it was okay to do Monday?
At this juncture, until the board says you definitely have to do Tuesday.
Okay.
Which I was hoping that you'd put in this year's fee schedule, or an employee to sign it out, be in charge of it, and take a look at it, which we didn't do.
We didn't do it. Vinny's been trying to take care of the payment.
Vinny's doing it for free outside.
And he's busy.
This is
was
a
just in
town
Korea.
property.
Yeah, I think
It has to be
I
policed.
think what we
The
what we
voters
thought
voted to keep
about
it.
is once it becomes a community rec,
It is, but the voters
It's only
expected to
rec
keep
center
it.
right now.
It's
We're
only
now
2
using
people.
it as a rec center. If it's being used now as a rec center, it has to be policed as a town rec center. I can't go in there every day making sure they're not putting storage in that room.
one
I
thing-
can't go in there and they're drilling holes in the ceiling into our
How come-
rafters.
and just-
They're drilling
just-
holes in the walls in a concrete block and hanging things off them. We've got a permanent stage set up in the middle of the room. We got a kitchen, old kitchen area that is a retail store now. It just can't happen. I've been begging you guys for months, and I was hoping at the beginning of this year we would figure this out. The voters said we want it, we're getting money for it, but we can't wait 2 years till we do it and just let it just be what it's doing for the next 2 years.
Understood.
Just,
We have to put somebody in charge of that.
and can I, this isn't the first discussion we as a board have had about this. So that's why I'm a little aggravated right now. Like, I'm really aggravated. I'm really aggravated at this point, because this is abuse after abuse after abuse. All right, we've had to go back, collect rent, we've had to chase them around for their money, then we put them on a schedule. Now we have conflicting schedules because somebody took it upon themselves to just go and change the night. Tom's right, this has gotta stop. Because it's a town building, there needs to be an semblance of control. And we keep going back to them and saying, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. Oh yeah, we'll do it. 3 months later, we're right back to the same conversation.
Okay.
I mean, something's gotta be done, period, about this.
So, Scott was involved in this. He was aware that he was there Monday. He said it was okay. So, basically,
But nobody notified the cheerleaders.
I didn't know he was there Monday at first. I found
Right.
out,
the whole
Because of the
issue
cheerleaders.
came.
There you go.
The
I didn't know he
issue
was there.
came when Tom said they were kicked out Monday, something about music, one couldn't do it, and I agree with Tom. So I agree about the whole thing, but we knew, well, actually, Scott knew about it, I knew about it, we talked about it, so it's our bad, I guess. But the other reason is too, that I didn't know about the fire thing, which is a big thing, and the drilling of the hole, so we'll have to address that. And we'll address the issue about Monday. If the board is inclined to say no Monday, we will approach that and saying the board decided you can't come in on Monday.
well,
And
also using that
just
kitchen
going,
as a store.
yeah, and going, let's go back to the roof
The-
trusses.
the
they can do
kitchen-
Monday, but they can't, they
They-
can do 3 days. What they're paying for is 3 days.
I get that,
2 hours at a time.
I get that.
So if she wants to do Zumba on Mondays with him on that, then that's fine, but the problem is he's doing an hour on Monday and she's doing an hour on Tuesday, all right? So if we go by how we have it written, right, it's a 2-hour time frame, 3 days a week, and that's what they're paying for, how they're paying it. But if now he's doing Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday and Saturday we're piggybacking,
Yeah.
they're almost there, but they're not there, right? So technically, they owe another day of pay,
Yeah.
if we're going by it.
And then just revisiting what are they drilling into? They're drilling into trusses.
Yep.
That's a truss roof. A truss roof is dependent on every single truss that's underneath that roof. If one truss fails, more than likely, 8 or 9 are gonna
The
fail,
weakest link.
okay? That's how it works. That's how firemen get killed all the time. So
And this
all
is
that
the
stuff
first
has,
time I'm aware of it.
that stuff has to come out of that ceiling.
Absolutely.
Period. That has to come down, like tomorrow. Has to. Because that could be catastrophic.
Well, definitely, I know
agree.
he cleared out everything, if they put stuff back in there.
Yeah, I thought we did. So,
So,
I mean, we could address that by, I mean, this is not, I mean,
Oh, I'm addressing that room tomorrow, so you know.
Well, I mean, there's
That
a
room will be
storage-
addressed
there's a
tomorrow.
storage issue
There'll be a middle
there.
of the floor.
and now that Tom, I don't know if the public knows already that Mobile Life's already moved out of there. So Mobile Life is not there anymore, so that office space is sitting empty. So until we actually do something, that room could be used for all their storage because it's just sitting there empty at this
Fine.
point. But we have to address that, like, I'll address it tonight.
but to Tom's bigger point about,
Yeah,
we
the
have
bigger point
2
is-
years to manage this building until it gets resurrected, so.
The bigger point is what Tom's getting at is we need a rec director now, not 2 years from now, because we are running recreation out of the building. So I
Exactly.
get his point. And that means opening, closing the building when they're coming there,
Yeah,
right? And right now, they're free to come and go because we changed the code, but now they know the code, so it's just like having the key,
Yeah.
right? So as long as they have a code, they can get in the building.
can we change the code?
Well,
We
at
can
this
change the
point, There's no reasonable expectation that somebody has to make a copy of that key. Code, key, true value, key back in, now I got the key, why do I need the code anymore? That's why we paid the $300 to change the
So
lock.
what
the
he's
keys
saying is,
were
if
under
it's a
control.
real rec program, we have to hire.
Oh, I understand.
The point is, we gotta hire someone.
I understand that. And we talked about that, certainly.
I know we don't. But that's,
I mean, maybe we need to do some small stipend to begin with,
All it is.
and so somebody can
So,
organize it.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, and I know what you're saying. So it's unfortunate, and maybe fortunate, because a lot of people like the two things that are going on, but we have to control a little bit better. We'll talk about the money and make sure that all their garbage is out of that room, as Scott indicated, and put into where the Tomback room, and also the stuff in the kitchen. So that's out of the way.
Okay.
And then we'll address, the issue about drilling into the trusses and stuff like that, that can't be allowed. And we'll actually, okay.
James got his hand up.
Bada bing, bada boom.
You got a hand up.
Let's start moving.
James,
You don't have to come up.
you're gonna, come on up, James.
I thought you had one time. Yale Junior's ready.
Okay, we can,
Pass out back there.
One of the things you might want to do is think about a separate small fee for storage, and maybe if they want to bring in a
we
storage
really
locker
don't want
or
that,
something.
Jim. I appreciate the thought. We
But
don't
if you
that.
want it out of that room, having them have a cabinet or something to
We have a
put the
problem
stuff
getting
in.
the $200, right? We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for the thought. Thanks for the walk. All right, let's go to the resolution. All right. Okay. Resolution 86 to introduce a local law of the town of Marlborough, Ulster County, New York, amending the zoning map of the town of Marlborough to establish a business corridor overlay district under Town Code Section 155-12, parentheses H, covering property at 1666 Route 9W, Milton, New York, more particularly described as tax parcel Section 103.3, Block 3, Lot 68, located in the R-Ag-1 zoning district. So this is the zoning that is required by resolution to change that and to do an overlay on that one particular area that Mrs. Brooks just talked about. And it also, when you do it as per the code, we have to have a notice of public hearing. And so we'll have a notice, we'll do that and take notice that the Town of Board of Marlborough will hold a public hearing at the Town Hall, 21 Milton Turnpike, Milton, New York, on December 9, 2019. And Colleen, you'll take care of that for us, please? And so with that resolution, you don't want me to read the whole resolution?
No, we're good with that. I read it over the weekend.
Colleen?
Supervisor Lanzetta.
Yes.
Councilman Malinelli.
Yes.
Councilman Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Councilman Koenig.
Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Patty. Resolution 87, authorizing the award of bid for the Town of Marlborough Milton Landing Pier Restoration Project. Whereas the bid of Arden Group LLC in the amount of $1,479,648,000 for the base bid plus the following alternates, to a deduct the alternate in the amount of $33,000. That was for the 4-foot. Alternate 3, add number 3, and add alternate in the amount of $90,000, and 4, and add alternate with the contingency of amount of $42,000 for a total contract price of $1,578,648 for the project has been determined to be the lowest responsible bid for such work as specified in the specifications of the file with the clerk. Regular meeting of the Town Board of Town of Marlborough, Ulster County, New York, was convened in public session at the Town Hall, 21 Milton Turnpike, Suite 200, Milton, on November the 25th, 2019, at 7 p.m. local time. The meeting was called to order by Supervisor Alfonso Lanzetta, and upon roll being called, the following members were present. You want to do the roll call to people who are present?
Supervisor Alfonso.
Present.
Lanzetta. Councilman Howard Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Scott Corcoran.
All present.
Councilmember
Oh,
Alan
we're doing
Koenig.
present? Okay.
Present.
Councilmember Ed Malinelli.
Present.
Nobody absent. The following persons were all present. The following resolution was offered by, would you like to offer that resolution up,
I'll
Al?
offer that
Alan
resolution.
should offer it.
And who would like to second it?
I'd like to second it.
Okay. Resolution authorizing the award of bid for the Town of Marlborough Milton Landing Pier Restoration Project. The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote on a roll call, which results as follows.
Supervisor Lanzetta.
Yes.
Councilman Baker.
Yes.
Councilman Corcoran.
Yes.
Councilman Koenig.
I'd just like to say, thank you to the board for all the work we've done on this and the vision that you had. And we've got a couple members that are sitting in here, Gail Appler, Rosemary Wine, Jerry Wine, myself, and entire Milton Landing. Thank you, and yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Malinelli.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Take it away. Now, Al, go get the money.
So, go get the money out. So, before we start, I just want to have the approval of the board. There's a short environment assessment form for the overlay zone, which is standard. So I need a motion to do that.
I make the motion for you to do that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Alan?
You want me to bring up one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just want to bring up, I'll be quick about it. Motion to adjourn.
And I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Mark has a question.
We never got,
Excuse me? We're going with Arbin Group, is that? Okay, so the base price